Hi, I hope this will be a short video today. So just a quick video on a few of the loose ends on environmental issues. So you should have made your presentation, had a look at why a business would be ethical, why they might not be ethical, but there are a few other things we need to look at, okay? And the first thing is externalities, which is a topic that if you've done economics, you should know plenty about. It's one of those topics that's in both subjects. So let's examine these shortly, okay? It's pretty straightforward. So externality is the effect of a business's activities, or it could also be a consumer's activities, on third parties that didn't even buy or consume that product. That's quite wordy. Let me try and simplify that a bit for you. Okay, so what I mean is an externality is the knock-on effect when a company produces something or a consumer consumes something, okay? Even if that person has nothing to do with the production or consumption of that good. Okay, so let me give you an example. A really typical example of externalities is smoking. Okay, so if a person chooses to smoke, they obviously have a private cost on themselves. They've got to buy the cigarettes. They are endangering their own life, heart disease, lung disease, and although their clothes smell and their breath smells, all those kind of things associated with smoking on the person that chooses to smoke. But it also creates a negative externality. It affects people that have never even had a cigarette in their life in the form of passive smoking. And if that person who chooses to smoke gets ill and takes a hospital bed, then that person that doesn't smoke can't take that bed. Okay, so a negative externality is the knock-on effect or the effect on third parties. And by third parties, we mean people that have got nothing to do with the production or consumption of that product. Okay, so we can say that an external cost or a negative externality is the same thing, are the costs paid for the rest of society other than businesses. So as a result of a business activity, there are negative effects on other people. But we can also have some goods that create external benefits. So when a product is produced, it has a positive effect on the rest of society. So if a vaccine is produced to cure a disease, not only do the people that directly have that vaccine benefit, but also the people around them and the rest of society benefit because they're less likely to get that disease, even if they haven't had the vaccine themselves. So that's a positive externality, okay? So then we can say the true social cost is the external cost, so that negative externality plus the private cost. So if we go back to smoking, the social cost is the cost of the individual, so the health implications, the smell, and the cost of buying cigarettes, added to the passive smoking and the use of the healthcare system. That's the true social cost of smoking. And the social benefit would be similar. So the social benefit is the external benefit, so the benefit of taking a vaccine on other people, plus the private benefit that you're less likely to get sick. So, little task here. I'm going to pause the video in a second. So think of an industry that is likely to create significant negative externalities. Okay, what are the externalities? And what could the government do to limit the damage of that externality? So pause the video, answer these three questions. You can rewind and make some definitions and notes on this concept of externalities. So what could we talk about? Well, we could talk about oil production. That could create negative externalities. Oil ships often crash, they pollute the ocean, that affects fish, that affects everybody else, even if you don't consume any oil, which is very unlikely. Everybody consumes oil, but assuming that you didn't, and the polluting oil production has a negative effect on all of society. The social cost is greater than the private cost. A polluting factory, that could also create negative externalities. And of course, a power plant burning wood, burning oil, can also create significant externalities. What is the externalities? Well, it's often pollution to the air that affects you. Even if you don't buy from that particular factory, you are affected by that factory because it's polluting the air. Maybe the ground or maybe even the sea. Okay, so that's going to be the typical externalities that businesses produce. So what could the government do to limit the damage of these externalities? There's quite a few things. They could use pollution permits, which is a license to pollute, and this would mean that the business has to buy extra permits if they can't stay within certain limits. So then that gives an incentive for the businesses to cut pollution and to keep their costs low, to keep their profit margins healthy. Or they could implement fines on really polluting companies, firms that are proven to be polluting the water supply or producing excessive amounts of CO2. Or we could tax businesses that were particularly high polluting. Okay, so you could also think about planning permits. So maybe ban the cutting down of trees or protect certain nature areas. So we could ban planning permission or not allow planning permission for factories to open in areas of natural beauty, for example. We could fine, again, businesses that dump excessive amounts of waste. And we could also fine and tax companies that are not making or using recyclable materials. So then that feeds back into what you were looking at in the first lesson when you were talking about why would you want to be socially responsible? Well, you avoid all these laws, these fines, these pollution permits, and it could keep your costs lower to be socially responsible than have to pay the tax imposed by government. Okay, so that's kind of the end of this small topic on environment. So you should have your notes and the presentation. Make sure you take the key points from that presentation and put it into your notes and add in information about externalities, what an externality is, and then laws that government use to try and limit the damage of these negative externalities. Okay, so next time we shall talk about the final topic, which would be international business, trade and exchange rates.